Exploring a vibrant, procedurally generated hexcrawl is the peak of tabletop gaming, with a group or solo. But the methods to generate these hexcrawls will either take hours of time, or will involve generating a very tiny slice of the entire game world, losing a lot of overall context for your RPG setting. Well, I'm going to show you how to generate a hexcrawl in 5 minutes, including generating terrain, creating interesting locations, and creating plot hooks to tie the world together. The rules are primarily based on the generation tools within The Vast and the Dark, a post-apocalyptic salt-punk RPG setting and GM toolset. In addition, you will need a hex grid, a writing implement, a bucket of d6, and a set of percentile dice that are all differently colored. Let's get started with the first step of generating the world terrain. Grab a handful of d6 die. The amount is to taste. The more you select, the more variety will be in your game world. And let's drop them on the map. Anything that rolls outside, just grab it again and re-roll. Now you're going to move each of these die into a spot, into a specific hex space, and now go through the table in The Vast and the Dark to assign terrain types to each of these spaces. The blank spaces and the number ones are wastes, so these are empty spaces. Spaces 2 through 4 are ruins, which includes dungeons and settlement types that the players will want to go to. 5 and 6 are pillars, which within the world of The Vast and the Dark are large 6-mile wide pillars that encompass the entire hex. So these basically account for impassable terrain in your setting. If you are in a different setting, you can instead, for the pillars, you can instead use mountains and bodies of water as 5 and 6 respectively, and you can do a similar thing for the ruins 2 through 4, changing them into distinct location types for each of those numbers. The next step that we want to add is to add connectors. So for any of the spaces that are marked 5 or 6, you want to connect them to another space. So to do that, we're going to pick a random direction, and I like to do this by just spinning a writing implement. Okay, now we'll take that direction, and from the impassable terrain space, we're going to extend that upwards, and that is going to create a mountain range. If you have multiple pieces of impassable terrain, you can join them together. For example, I'm going to add another die of impassable terrain, and let's say that's going to be moving to the southeast. So we can have that mountainous terrain start, and once it meets the prior section of terrain, it intersects and combines into one. The next step that we want to do is create plot hooks in this terrain. Now for this, we will take the percentile die. And just like the other die, we're going to just drop them on the map and arrange them. And now the key of these die, number 1, the numbers on the die are going to correspond to meaning tables within Game Master Emulator. And I'm going to start by using just the standard meaning description table. You can use any of the elements tables or any random table generally to make your decisions about these plot hooks. With each color, I'll start with this set of die here. This is 56. 56 gives us joyfully, Now I'm going to just mark these two spaces, and we're going to mark them both with a 1, as these are both the first plot hook locations. Now I'm going to take that same set of die and roll it again to get a second description. Average. Joyfully average. That to me sounds like settlements, and very placid settlements. Settlements that maybe have good amounts of trade with them and have low amounts of bandit activity. So these seem like very great, safe zones. And perhaps the goal of these zones is the creation of a new nation state. And this nation state is kind of trying to bring order into this area. So with that in mind, now we can create a castle. And these will be fortifications that we'll create around the castle. What is the plot hook going to be? We can roll again on a meaning table. And let's roll on the Legends meaning table. So this is going to be a 49, which is help. That makes sense. So this plot hook is going to be a request of help from the leadership of this town to take care of bandit raids in the outskirting villages. Now let's move on to the next die. 93. This is 2. So 93 on the meanings table is strangely. And 46. Horrible. Strangely horrible. So there is some sort of ancient artifact. I would say that this is somewhere within this mountain range, an ancient artifact of incredible power. The villagers or the nomads in this area know the rumors and the strange tales about this artifact location. So coming to this location will allow you to learn about the artifact, and vice versa. If you're in this location, that will tell you about the town that it's connected to. Now let's go to this guy, and we will roll a 30 enthusiastically, and 6 bizarre. Enthusiastically bizarre. The story here is about some sort of cult operation. Now, when you have these plot hooks individually generated, the next step is to connect the plot hooks together. For example, anytime plot hooks are beside each other, or their actual line intersects, at that point, we would want to create a connection between those two plot hooks, because the goal is to get the plot hooks from one set of adventures pointing to a new set of adventures, so that way the story is continuous and ongoing. So this cult, and we can say that, so this is next to a settlement that was already described, so maybe the cult base is here. And this settlement is being plagued by perhaps some sort of magical attacks from the cult, and perhaps the cult is also trying to get into this location here to get the ancient artifact that these nomads know about. So now, if we are doing plot point number 2 with the ancient nomads, we know that we will run into the cult, and at that point we'll be drawn into the cult base and into this storyline with this outskirt town. Likewise, the nomads here, perhaps these nomads are part of the bandit group that is raiding in space number 1. So by fighting off these bandit groups and maybe capturing or meeting some of the people in these nomadic groups, the PC can learn about that conflict, the conflict of this area, and maybe this artifact would be what would tip the balance for that conflict. So now with these plot hooks generated, for any of these individual spaces, you can take it and expand it into a local map of 1 mile wide hexes. Now, you don't have to do this step every space on the hex immediately, but this would allow you to expand the initial hex that the players are starting on, or another critical point of interest, so that way you can lay out the important NPC locations and also NPC groups that are in that hex. Just like we did on the top map, we'll take some d6. We will roll them out. And now we'll be using a slightly different table. This is going to be, we'll be using this as the ruins table here. So anything that's marked A1 is a waste. 2 through 4 are specific ruin sites. So these can be entrances, cave entrances into the mountains. And then 5 is going to be settlement or settlement equivalent for this area. So these might be bases that are set up either by the cult or by perhaps the nomadic tribes. I would imagine this would be the cult. Maybe they're kind of creating that expedition into the mountain. And now we'll take the context of whatever this tile was, as this was impassable terrain, and we will just add that into our understanding of what this location is. So each of these tiles are mountainous and have, there's going to be difficulty passing through the tiles, and there may be, additional tools needed by the PCs as they're adventuring through it. So now we have generated locations within the world. We've created different varied kinds of terrain types, and we've created plot hooks to tie multiple facets of the world together. And now we're ready to play. So I hope this is helpful, and let me know what your thoughts are on other ways to generate hexes. I really enjoy doing it quick like this because it lets you get into the game right away. Thanks for watching.